know that Eli Whitney didn't invent the cotton gin.
That's right.
But we don't know the name of the enslaved African who created this labor-saving device.
That's right.
We know that Matthew Henson was the first man to reach the North Pole, but Robert Perry got the credit.
That's right.
We know that James Brown is the godfather of soul and R&B, but Elvis is still the king. So we know that Africans have always had to fight for recognition of our accomplishments, and it is no different in the secret. It's not right, it's not fair, but this is the hand that we've been dealt. And so we've got to deal with this situation and make the most out of it. But there are ways that we can do that. And so it's important for us to realize that we have to know ourselves so that we can defend our culture by reclaiming that which we were not supposed to know. And if you don't know your historical timeline, if you don't know your place along this historical timeline, then you cannot negotiate the landmines of history. You cannot resist having your mind blown when someone rips off your story and then presents it back to you as their history. So, I want to look at the secret. And I want to look at the secret from this perspective. Bob Proctor, who is one of the elders among the teachers, talked about the secret. And he stated, and this is a direct quote, he said, "I don't care if you live in India, Australia, New Zealand, Stockholm, London, Toronto, Montreal, or New York. We all live under one power, one law, attraction." Bob Proctor made no mention of Dakar, Prague, Johannesburg, Cairo, or Africa where the secret originated. There's something wrong with that. He also went on to say, and this is a direct quote, "Wise people have always known the secret. You can go right back to ancient Babylon." Again, no reference to Egypt, the country in Africa where even they showed you in the beginning of the DVD where the secret was born. So we've got to do an analysis so that we can understand when people hide information in plain sight. And near the end of the DVD is when I got irritated. I really got irritated. Because at the end of the DVD, they began to discuss the secret in the world. And they showed us images of unrest throughout the world in different cities. And I found in these images very disturbing racial stereotypes. We saw an image of an African-American male in a detention center behind a chain-link fence. We saw an image of two African male hands reaching through the bars of a cell. And so I was offended by these racial stereotypes. And I expect more from a supposedly spiritual enlightening book and DVD. As a result of studying our history and culture for over 30 years, I've developed high standards. And I am a historical detective. And I have developed an internal lie detector. I know what to believe and, more importantly, what not to believe. My internal lie detector was going off as I watched this segment of the DVD. And experience has taught me to be suspect of any person who references ancient African Egyptian spiritual knowledge, but will not portray the Egyptians as indigenous Africans, something that has been substantiated as a historical fact. If they could hide a fact that could be so easily disproven, what else might they try to hide? All right? So we have to develop this critical eye. And in looking at this critical eye, that is what caused me to analyze the secret. And based on my assessment, I find the secret to be old wine in new bottles. And I've come to see Rhonda Byrne as the P.T. Barnum of New Age thought. You know, P.T. Barnum who said there's a sucker born every minute. She has brought various acts together under her spiritual big top, and she is now marketing The Secret as the greatest show on earth. Let's go back to Esther Hicks for a minute. Esther Hicks has finally come out and spoken out on The Secret. She has a new book and a new DVD. The DVD is entitled The Secret Behind the Secret. And she's spilling the beans on Rhonda Byrne. Now, what's significant is that this represents their attempt to set the record straight about the law of attraction and how the law of attraction operates. I really did set the record straight about the law of attraction and how the law of attraction operates. I really did, Esther Hicks. I find her to be a very spiritually grounded person. And on the original DVD, I found that Esther Hicks and Michael Beckwith were the two cornerstones of that DVD. The truth resonated with much of what they said. Everybody else was like kind of vacillating all over the place, but they were constant. So, what I want us to, what has happened in recent months is that several of the teachers of The Secret have distanced themselves from Rhonda Byrne. And they've also distanced themselves from some of the comments that were made from some of the teachers in The Secret. Nightline, several months ago, I think it was back in May, did a piece on The Secret and analyzed some of the stuff in The Secret. And Bob Proctor, they asked him point blank about certain statements. He said, well, I don't know about that. All I know is. And so, some detractors are trying to tear it down because they're afraid of what this information could eventually mean to power in the world. And others are tearing it down because they see flaws in it. And it's your right to critique something with a careful eye. But what's significant is that much of the criticism of The Secret has come as a result of people realizing that it tends to oversimplify complex things. And it places too much emphasis on material gains instead of spiritual development. But there is good in The Secret. The good is that this DVD and this book have prompted millions of people to begin to examine their personal lives and begin to accept responsibility for their thoughts and actions. And these are the first steps toward the development of a higher consciousness. So within all the other stuff that's happening, there is some good that hopefully will come out as people begin to see the world differently. History teaches us that what is known today as a secret was known to the Greeks as the mysteries back in 332 BCE. And mystery only meant that this information was unknown to them. It was a mystery, but it was a way of life to the people of Kemet. It was a way of life which was practiced from the cradle to the grave. And the grave robbers who invented Egyptology discovered texts and fragments of The Secret in the tombs. And they referred to these fragments as the Book of the Dead. One of the, Esther Hicks referred to the movie called The Secret is still not revealing the secret. So this part of the contradiction is going on. I want you to keep your eyes open because you're going to hear more about this in the coming weeks and months. And you need to do an analysis of what you hear based on what comes out and who says it. But I want us to look at the so-called Book of the Dead, the Papyrus of Nefer, which was written about 1238 BCE. And within this document, we know, first of all, that the so-called Book of the Dead were notes for the afterlife. They were originally known as Pergam Heru, or the chapters for coming forth into day. The chapters are coming forth into a new life, a new consciousness. I refer to view them as cliff notes for the soul, because they were put in the sarcophagi in order to help the spirit of the deceased negotiate the 12 gates of the underworld, so that he or she could say the specific passwords which would help them get from one level of the underworld into the next underworld, so they can come into the Hall of Ma'at, the Hall of Justice. And this scene is one of the most significant scenes